1, 2, 3.
Yes, it's the Late Late Breakfast Show with your host, Bernie J. Mitchell.
Are you in?
Are you in?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm over the moon to have finally made it through here on my first Zoom thing, and flying in from somewhere in, I guess, Southeast Asia, but correct me if I'm wrong, is Amber. So, Amber, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for?
Hi, yes, I am in Southeast Asia. I'm living in Ubud, Bali right now, and I would like to be known for a writer and a digital nomad.
A writer and a digital nomad. Oh, so I've been stalking you online for a little bit now, and
Thank you.
I want to in a nice way. And we got connected because my partner in crime, Niels, ran a little workshop on Trello in Bali. And the first thing I'd like to kick off with is because you don't use Trello, but you went to the Trello workshop. And I'm always running around shouting about Trello, but I think it's really healthy to hear from people who are using, because there are other tools available than Trello. So I'm interested first in how you organize yourself, and then how you got to Bali, not by plane, but the route you took there to tunnel out of your cubicle into being a digital nomad. So how do you organize yourself as you're running around the world?
So I actually just use pen and paper. I have a Moleskine notebook that is a yearly planner that I use, and when you open it up, the left side of the notebook is weekly, and the right side of the notebook is just lined blank pages.
I have that one.
Yeah, so I use this system because I am freakishly organized and plan everything that I do months in advance. So all of my content is written a month in advance. All of my social media is scheduled a month in advance. And I do that because I have a lot of self-awareness, and I know that I don't work well under pressure. I'm not a procrastinator. I don't produce good work when I have to do it the night before. And I know that about myself, which is why I work in batches and prepare so much ahead of time. The reason that I use paper and pen and a planner like this is because I can go in 3 months from now and think, where do I want my content to be in 3 months from now? So for example, we are recording mid-July. When I look at my planner, July is already written, scheduled, everything's ready to go. Most of August is done. So I, right now, am working on September's content. So the reason that I use paper and pen is because then it gives me a chance to see things in a way that I can organize my week, but also work in batches also.
When you say content, is that just written content, or is that webinars or videos, or?
It's everything. I produce about 15 pieces of content a month. That includes newsletters, blog posts, webinars, free trainings, anything like that.
So how do you work out where you're going? Like, so how do you? I know this might sound a really obvious question, but how do you know what you want to be doing in September, and where are you writing that? Have you just got a little note saying, write about fishing on the 15th of December, or do you have a file? Or
well, so last November, so this kind of goes back to the second part of your question. In November of 2015, I quit my job, sold everything I owned, and bought a one-way plane ticket to Thailand, with the intention of running Climb Out of the Cubicle full-time. So Climb Out of the Cubicle is my first business. I'm launching a second business in the very near future. But whenever I left my job, the goal was to just run Climb Out of the Cubicle 24 hours a day. When I got to Thailand, the first thing that I did was I created my content plan for the whole year. So I came up with 52 weeks of blog ideas. I came up with maybe 5 to 7 e-courses that I could potentially launch at different times. I knew that I wanted to start a podcast. I started my podcast in January. And so I knew what was happening and where I wanted my business to go. So in November, before the first of the year, I got all of that logistical stuff out of the way so that then when the new year came, I could focus on just actually creating and producing and giving as much free content away as possible.
So where do you store those? Where do you, sorry, where do you write what you're writing? Do you sit down and go, I'm writing this blog post today? Because that's 52 weeks. And I've got to say, I'm very jealous of that because I've done for years of doing that. But where's it being created as you go? Is it in the Moleskine book, or is it in a document online?
No. So what I did was, and I don't know that this is the right way or the wrong way. This is just the way that I do it.
I don't think there's a right way or wrong way.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I know it sounds a bit of a get out, but I think it's the way that works for you because we get hung up on other people's systems. So,
right. So I sat down for probably 2 hours one afternoon, and I thought of every potential blog post, webinar training, podcast episode that I could ever think of. And I just got it all out of my head and wrote it down on little pieces of paper. Probably I took sticky notes, like square sticky notes, and tore them in half. So I just wrote how to quit your job on a sticky note, how to move to Asia on a sticky note, how to organize yourself online, like anything that I could think of. I just did a total brain dump and put them on little portable pieces of paper. I work better in a visual mode for this idea. So I wrote them on little pieces of paper, and then I organized them into what I call my pillar categories. So my pillar categories are the 5 main things that I talk about in my blog over and over and over. So like I talk about making choices over fear. I talk about living deliberately. I talk about not settling. I talk about futuristic planning, etc. So I have these pillar categories that I talk about over and over and over, and I knew that. So then when I had all of these little pieces of paper with hundreds of ideas on them, I then categorized them into where they would fall in to each pillar category. From there, I put my categories into iCal, just on my MacBook. So I did a reoccurring event in my iCal. So every Wednesday is when I post a blog post. So I put, blog post, futuristic thinking, and then I had it reoccur every 5 weeks so that I know every 5 weeks I'm writing about futuristic thinking. And I did that with all 5 categories. Then I took all of those little pieces of paper and I wrote them in a Word document. I just typed them all out with the headers, with the category as a header, and then wrote out, there were probably 20 or 30 ideas for each category, and I just wrote them all out in a Word document. Now, when it comes time, like real time, when it's time to start writing, for example, September's content, like I mentioned, I go into my iCal, and I know that on September 7th, which is a Wednesday, the topic is futuristic thinking. So then I will go into my Word document, look at all of the options that I have for futuristic thinking, and try to think of something that's relevant, that I've talked about in the past, something with current events, something that's going to be real and applicable to my audience, and then I write about it in real time. But the thought process is already done. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And what's really refreshing about this, I thought you'd come here and say, I use, Asana or Basecamp. And it's really great and quite unexpected to hear you say, I use my calendar in a Word doc, because I'm always preaching about apps because they really, really work for me. And the way you're working really works for my wife, and I can't do that. And the way I'm always jumping in and out of an app, she wants to kill herself watching me do things. So when did you start blogging? Because I actually thought you jumped out your cubicle earlier than you did. So it's only since last November.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had started building Climb Out of the Cubicle for over a year, just as my side hustle before I quit my job. Like I said, I'm pretty organized. That also means that I am a highly thoughtful person. So I'm not someone who would just think, I'm going to quit my job and move to Asia and hope that this works out. So I planned to quit my job about a year in advance. I saved as much money as I could. I paid off any debt other than my student loans. I, made sure that things were taken care of at my 9 to 5, had quality time to get my family on board with all of this. So I planned it out a year in advance. So I started Climb Out of the Cubicle maybe 2.5 years ago at this point, just as my side hustle. And then before that, I was blogging as a personal creative outlet about 3 years prior to that. So this has been a long time coming and a very slow, organic process for me.
So two questions you can answer them all in one little bundle is, what were you blogging about as a creative outlet to begin with? And what did you was it like a movie where you stood up in your cubicle one day and went, "I'm leaving"? Or what was rumbling around to make you, because it's a little bit of, obviously I love it, but it's a little bit of a cliche of quitting the cubicle. But did you suddenly have this kind of, Jane Fonda parachute experience, and also what were you doing before you got in the cubicle? Because I know you were in the military, and I'm gagging to ask what you did there.
Yes.
Yes, that's how you're so organised.
I think people make that connection a lot. And I think that just happened to be a good trait that I had when I joined the military. I was the kid who picked out their clothes on Sunday night before school started, and I packed my bag, like my backpack, and put it by the door every night before I went to bed. So I think I do have just like natural organization in me. The military just appreciates that. So I was in the military for 6 years. In my early 20s, I had 2 jobs. My first job was in navigation. I was on a ship for 3 years, stationed out of Italy. And my job on the ship was to make sure that the ship did not run aground or hit things or run over a whale or things like that, which is, important work, but I don't care about movement of naval vessels at all. I don't care.
Even if you're on them.
Yeah, no, even if I just don't want that to be my job at all. So in the United States Navy, you have the opportunity to change jobs after about 3 years. So as soon as my 3 years were up, I tried to find a job that was much better suited to my personality, and I became a paralegal in the Navy. So I did paralegal work for 3 years. So then I was stationed in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. And while I was in D.C., I got the opportunity to go to Baghdad, Iraq, and serve in Iraq for 6 months. And while I was in Iraq, I worked in detainee operations, and I went into the Iraqi prisons, met the alleged terrorists, and decided if we had enough evidence to move forward with prosecution. So that was what I did in Iraq. And then I got out of the military it was probably 26 when I got out. And I did not have my university education, my formal education, which was really important to me at the time. I don't know that it's so much important anymore, but at the time it really was. So I went to school full time, got my degree, and then I was immediately offered a job at the Department of Homeland Security in Washington, D.C. For some reason, before I even graduated from college, I had this idea in my mind that this job at the Department of Homeland Security was going to be so boring. I just knew it. I knew it was going to be boring. So that was why I started blogging. So I just created a free blog on a free platform, and I used that as my creative outlet in a not so creative job. And I would go around Washington, D.C. and go to museums and just got out into the world and explored a little bit. And that was my creative outlet in a not so creative professional life.
So what did you blog about on there? Like, I went to the museum today and saw a dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you should do that too. And I was an English literature major, so sometimes I would write about literature that I had read or book reviews or passion projects that I was learning about. I was reading a book about Thomas Jefferson for a while, and then I went to Thomas Jefferson's house, so I did a whole series on Thomas Jefferson and just random things. Now looking back at that, I think like, oh my gosh, you had no structure, you had no plan. I can't believe you were just posting haphazardly. Like, it's not what I would do now, obviously, but it was a good creative outlet at the time, and it gave me something to think about that wasn't work and wasn't, having a boyfriend or things like that. It gave me a little bit more purpose in my life, which I think is really important as you're growing and developing and all of that.
Those blogs are my favorite ones. The innocent bystander blogs. And I know they're all supposed to be like, call to action and SEO'd up and everything like that. But the best, the best ones are the ones that are just people web logging. What is the... Sorry, go on, because I had a question there and it's jumped out of my head.
Okay. So whenever I was on this free blogging platform, I legitimately thought that I was the only blogger in the world. Like, I thought I had discovered this magical thing that was really great because nobody else that I knew was a blogger. And I was.
That's exactly what you mean.
So I thought it was just me. And, my sister told me, my only reader, my sister, she was like, you're so good at this. This is amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I know. And then I mentioned something at work. I had told a couple people at work that I was a blogger. And one of the girls at work said, oh, I want to add you to my Google Reader. And I was like, wait, what's that? And she's like, it's like the place that I go to read all of my blogs. And I was shocked. Like, what do you mean all of your blogs? She's like, yeah, like one of the things that I do in my spare time is I read blogs. I read food blogs and travel blogs. And I was shocked. I had no idea. Like, I really thought that I was the only blogger out there.
What year was this? 2011?
Yeah, 2010, 2011, something like that. And so I went home that night and looked up Google Reader, and I was just fascinated that there were so many other blogs out there that I thought that I should get myself into like a blogging community.
Can you remember some of the first ones you jumped up on?
Some of the first blogs that I read?
Yeah, that you, and are there any that you continued reading?
I don't read any of the same ones now because my focus is so different. Like, what type of content I consume is so drastically different than it was 6 years ago. But I was reading lots of food blogs, especially food blogs from the Food Channel in the United States. I was reading this woman named Penelope Trunk because I kind of felt like she was a train wreck. Everything she said was just so ridiculous that I really wanted to read it every week. And who else did I read? Well, then I joined a community of bloggers in the area. So I went on Meetup, found a community of bloggers in Washington, D.C., went to the meetups, and then I found all of these other bloggers, and I started reading their blogs and the people that they read, and it really expanded my reach. And then that was when, after being in this blogging community for about a year, maybe not that long, maybe 8 months or so, someone said, you really need to get off of this free blogging platform and own your own domain and be able to control your website. And I had never thought about that before. So then that was when I started looking into WordPress and really developing a niche and call to actions and developing my email list and, gradually moving into where I am now. But that was how I started, with just free blogging as just a creative way to express myself and to get out into the world. But then it slowly morphed into buying the Climb Out of the Cubicle domain, really getting on social media, and then developing it into a business. Wow.
And so one thing you didn't confirm, was the Homeland's security job really boring?
Oh yeah, it was awful.
Did it turn out to be exciting on the side?
No. I mean, I had really great coworkers, which is, saves the day. But the job itself, I was just overqualified. And, even when I said, I want more work to do, I want more responsibility to handle, they just didn't have the work for me because I am not a licensed attorney. There's only so much that they could give me in my role as a paralegal. which is understandable and, abiding by the law, which is fine. But for me, it was just a little boring.
So did you find it really easy to go in every day and just like get through it naturally? And did you get all your work done in 10 minutes and then sit around blogging?
Yes. Yeah, mostly. It was one of those things where something, my boss would give me a task at like 10 o'clock and I knew that it was only going to take me 20 minutes. So I would think, well, I guess I'll just wait till after lunch to do this. That'll give me something to do after lunch at least. But yeah, for the most part, I just went in, did as much work as I could, and then played online for the rest of the day.
Yahoo. So, which is the complete opposite to something I'm going to ask you about now, is you talk on, I've heard you talk about living deliberately and living on purpose. And what does that mean for you?
For me, living deliberately means that I am completely living in my integrity, that I'm doing what I believe is right, even when no one is looking and even when it's not fun, and that I am living to my full potential. I hold myself to the really high expectation that I'm not willing to settle in my life for anything. I'm not willing to settle with friends, with potential partners, with jobs, with my location. I'm not willing to allow myself to just become comfortable and do the same thing over and over because it's easy. So for me, living deliberately is making sure that I'm challenging myself and putting myself in situations that forces me to get outside of my comfort zone so that I can hope to experience the greatest life that I possibly can.
Is that something you decided when you were like 14 or 12 or 20?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, I guess I can say this since they won't ever listen, but I think my biggest fear is becoming my parents. My mom still lives in the house that I grew up in. She still has a landline. Like, she's just not willing to adapt and conform to how society and technology is changing. And my dad, I went to the same high school that my dad went to, and I knew that if I would have stayed in the community that I grew up in, then I would have married some guy from high school. We would have had kids. They would have gone to the same school district that I went to, that my dad also went to. And while that's really great for a lot of people, and a lot of people find a lot of joy in it, I just knew that I wouldn't. And I didn't want to be resentful of a life that I chose. I mean, I'm really willing to fail. I'm definitely okay with failure, but I'm not okay with not trying and not putting myself in situations that at least pushes me in some way.
So is that why you joined the military? Was that like a dramatic leap of escaping?
It was, and it was a pretty spur of the moment decision.
So tell me about the spur of the moment decision. That sounds juicy.
Yeah, so after I graduated from high school, so I'm 18 years old, I grew up in the type of family that you moved out as soon as you were 18. There was no, you can live at home forever. You can be on our family plan. We'll pay for your car insurance. Like, that was not my upbringing at all. It was very much like, you are an adult, you are 18, please leave. So I moved out. I graduated high school in May, and I was living on my own by August. And it's kind of tough to be 18 years old and, paying rent and all of your bills and trying to go to college and doing all of these things. And I was watching Ronald Reagan's funeral on TV in 2004. And I was talking on the phone to my best friend, Emily, and I was, just watching all of this happen. And I remember telling her, I wish that I could do something as honorable as the guys on TV that are carrying the president's casket. Like, I wish that there was something that I could do that was honorable. And she, so casually, she was like, well, why don't you just join the military? And I was like, oh, I should join the military. You are right. I don't have any connection to anything. I don't have anything holding me back. I don't, I can just, that's absolutely something that I can do. It's not like I had a house payment or anything like that. Like, I'll just join the military. And 6 weeks later, I was in boot camp.
Was that in the States, or did you have to travel somewhere else to do that?
No, that was in the States. I did all of my military training in the United States.
So going back to what you said earlier, how did you end up, I wanted to ask this at the time, but how did you end up navigating on a ship? Did you get selected for that, or did you choose that, or how did that work out between boot camp and cruising around the Amalfi Coast?
So before I even left for boot camp, my job was already chosen. And they have recruiters that try to put you in these different positions. They make you take an aptitude test, and then you get an arbitrary number, and whatever your number is, they give you these list of jobs that, your score allows you to be in. And then they also take a look at that list of jobs and see where they have openings. So at the time, my options were meteorologist, military police, and this job in navigation. And at the time I was like, I don't like guns. I could never be military police. So I got that one off the table. And then I was thinking, meteorologist, like, that's crazy. I mean, I don't want to be a meteorologist. That sounds awful.
You could be a weather girl.
Yeah, right. Later I found out that meteorologists have really great duty stations all over the world. So that might not have been a bad idea. After all.
Have you seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs?
I have not.
Okay, so it's a movie with a meteorologist. I can't even say it. There we go.
Meteorologist.
So what's can I ask another question about how do you, because like Bali and nomadic life is like a chilled out kind of adventure, and then being in Iraq is a pretty deliberate thing.
Yes.
And how do you reconcile those two worlds?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, but I like that. I'm definitely a type A person. I like order, I like structure, I like timeliness. I could practically be German, but I know that sometimes those things get the better of me, and sometimes I miss out on living in the moment and taking in what's happening around me because I'm so concerned about what's coming next, and what time is it, and where are we going, and how does this fit into our plan, and we need to move on and do something else that's more productive and constructive. And I knew that this digital nomad life would be much calmer. And I'm not going to say that transition has been easy, because it hasn't. It does go against everything that feels natural to me. But it has helped me relax a bit and be more calm, be more go with the flow. And I think it's helped me chill out a little bit.
I thought you were going to finish later then. I was forming this question in my head, I'll come clean, about there's a relationship between structure and creativity. So like kind of the more structure you have, or the more routine you have, the more you're able to create white space or creative space. Does that make sense to you?
Yes and no. I think I wish that you could see a copy of my iCal right now, because I plan out every single second of my day. It's flexible and I can move things around, but ideally I have my ideal week planned out at a time. And I know that I have creative blocks during different times of the week. So there are some days when it's like, okay, it's Monday afternoon. You're going to create between 1 and 5 p.m. That is your time to create. And sometimes that works out really well, and I create from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then there's other times that I'm sitting at lunch on Monday afternoon thinking, I don't want to write anything all day. But because I'm living this lifestyle, I can choose to move things around a little bit. So if I'm not feeling particularly creative on Monday, then I can move that to Tuesday or Wednesday and do something else with my Monday afternoon that's still productive, but still give myself the time and space that I do need to be productive and to be creative.
And does it work really well because you plan like 3 years ahead? So you never miss a publishing date, but you just might be a bit behind your publishing, your creation schedule. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it does work well. I think it does work well for me, just because I like knowing what's coming next. I find that very comforting. And because I know that about myself, then I can plan in these times. I know that I'm not going to be creative every day. That's for sure. So I've created about 8 hours during a week, and I've broken those 8 hours up to maximize my time throughout the week. But when things happen, like right now I'm launching a new website for my second business. So most of my time is being spent creating that, just because I have a hard deadline of when I want to launch the website, and I have client work and things like that happening. So there is a concentrated amount of effort building this, but I can almost guarantee that the day after it's launched, I won't be creating anything. I'll probably go get a really cheap massage and have a piece of Oreo cheesecake and call it a day or something. But that's kind of the beauty of this lifestyle, is that I can do things like that. I always tell people that it really feels like every day a Saturday for me, that if I don't want to work tomorrow, then I don't. And it's fine.
I think you just made a lot of people jealous there.
But then I'm going to work, Saturday night and, late into the night. So for me, it's like every day kind of feels the same, but I do have the flexibility to say, you know what, I need a nap today. So I'm going to go home and take a nap for 3 hours and then work out of my apartment. And I can do that. But then there's other days, like today, when I am fully focused on this new website launch, and I have been in the office since 7 a.m. and I'm going to go have dinner soon, and I'm coming back. So I'm going to put in probably 12 or 15 hours today, and I'm perfectly okay with that. So, I just have to give myself the creative liberty to make something happen and meet my deadlines, because that's who I am as a person, and living within my integrity is really important to me. But it also gives me the freedom that the day after this website is launched, I'm probably taking that next day off.
Delicious. So just to wrap up, tell us about your, because we're recording this just before you launch your new business and website. So by the time it's aired, it will have happened. So what should we go and look at?
So the website is called The Amber Monaco. That's me, The Amber Monaco. And I have started a content creation agency. So I know that I'm really good at creating content for myself and just being a content machine. And now I am allowing other people to hire me so that I can take that burden off of their plate and handle it all for them. So the website should be launched by the time this airs, and you can go check out the type of work that I do, and hopefully I can help some people feel a little bit more comfortable with planning some content.
Who are the kind of people you'd like to help most? Would it be Oracle or fishmongers or?
Well, I think I can write about anything.
Dancers.
Yes, I think I can write about anything. I was recently writing a few articles about fashion, and then turning around and writing a few articles about doomsday preppers and survivalists in America. So I have a whole range that I can definitely write about. That's one of the great things about studying English for so long, is that I really can write about anything. But I love helping entrepreneurs and businesses who love being in their business and love working in their business, and they just want to do their job and work. They don't want to deal with the content creation stuff. So I love just giving people the feeling of relief and ease, that I can take that off their plate, still create something that's in their voice and that matters to them, but gives them the freedom that I have taken care of that, and they can go do what they do best.
Brilliant. And were you on the socials and all those type of internety things? Where can we track you down?
Twitter is my favorite place online. My handle is The Amber Monaco. And I also have a free Facebook group called The Second Shift, which is for people who work at all times of day, and they are willing to work nights, weekends to make it happen, make their business happen, their passion project, their side hustle, people who just want to do the work and need a support system around it. So I invite everyone to come join The Second Shift and just find a tribe of people who support you as you're creating for yourself.
I love the second shift thing. I'll link to that in the show notes. When you said the second shift, I thought that was some kind of cosmic alien paradigm of possibility, but maybe it is actually. Maybe it is.
Maybe, perhaps. I was thinking more, so I grew up in middle America where there's a lot of factories, and shift work was a big deal. And so they call it first shift, second shift, or third shift. And second shift is like the evening. So what 9-to-5ers would consider, the after work time. So that's why I call it that.
Brilliant. Okay. I'll link to that in the show notes. Thank you very, very much for your time, Amber. And I'm sure we'll be catching up with you somewhere soon. And be careful out there. It's a jungle.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please go to berniejmitchell.com/podcast. Bernie would love your feedback and input.